Welcome to My Love of Life Energy. I'm Anna Scott, your host. I love beautiful, rich conversations that reveal the truth, beauty, and uniqueness of each person I meet, and I'm honored to share them with you. Good morning and good afternoon, and welcome to my podcast, My Love of Life Energy. And I'm continuing in my series with people I don't know, but maybe I've read something that they've written, that they've reached out to me, and I'm trying an adventure where I don't know really a lot about what's coming at me, and we're going to see and make it up. And today I have the great honor, and I know it's an honor because I've read his material and listened to him. I'm interviewing James Robbins. Welcome, James.
Thanks, Anna. So nice to be on your podcast.
Yeah, I'm reading your book, Dare to Climb. Did I get the title right? Because I suck at names.
The Call to Climb.
Sorry, told you. And it's beautiful.
Thank you.
Absolutely beautiful. So I read in some of your interviews that you say you're not a great writer, which I believe is bullshit. Excuse the French, but you're a great storyteller. How did you fall in love with stories?
My mother read to me every single night till I was probably about 10. And my father used to tell me hunting stories. I realize now they were all made up, but at the time I didn't know. It's just a 4-year-old sitting in his bed, and he would tell me these tales of being surrounded by wolves in the Canadian wilderness, and I was spellbound. So I think it started. I think it started there.
Did you continue it yourself, or did you develop it?
Well, I think, as you know, there are things inside of us that often we don't realize till later in life. And my parents had wanted me to take a traditional career, like be a lawyer, be a doctor. And I went to 2 years of college, and I was just like, I don't like this. This isn't sitting well for me. And so I took a year off, traveled to Australia with a bunch of friends. And down there, I realized, you know what I really want to do? I want to be a film director. I want to make movies and tell stories. And came back home, told my parents. And, where I grew up on a small cattle ranch, that was like, well, you can't do that. But I transferred out to the West Coast, was going to go into film school. And then as life throws different curves at you, I ended up going into Christian ministry for a while, which was not even on my top 100 things that I ever considered doing. But I liked helping people. But it was in there that I was able to then take stories from the Bible and teach them to others. And so I think it's just one thing after another. There's been a theme in my life of stories, and it's as a vehicle of transformation.
How beautiful. I didn't catch that one. Do you still practice ministry, but in a COVID way?
I don't practice ministry anymore, no.
I don't know if that's true.
I guess yes. If I'm defining it as the guy who gets up on Sunday and says, "Hey, open your Bible to this page," then no, I don't. But that's another whole story in itself. When you are in a place like ministry, or I think even any high purpose filled work, and if it's not, but at some point, if it's not resonating for you, it's a real struggle to leave it because you feel like almost like you're not supposed to leave it. But that happened over a number of years, and yeah, it took a while for me to transition into I'm still helping people, but in a different capacity.
You just spoke about something, um, high resonance. And in your book, you talk about, I don't know, I'm assuming the job is true. I have no idea. That's the thing about storytelling. I don't know if the job is true. And I don't have to know. Is it?
Which job is true? The one from the book?
Yeah. Yeah.
That's not totally my story, but I think it's a universal story of being in a job that you didn't like. So yes, in that way, not that I didn't like it, but that at some point something is not resonating for me. And actually for me, it wasn't the job per se, it was the organization I was working in as that culture evolved and shifted into something where I felt more like I was in sales, and I just didn't like that, especially in a spiritual environment. So that's really what caused the problem. But yeah, the book does open with the main character really struggling and wrestling with, am I supposed to be doing this? But at the same time, I've just got to pay the bills, so I've just got to keep pushing forward. And that definitely is my story. I for years, I spent years going up and down, happy, unhappy. And it took me a long time to just sit down and go, wait a minute, maybe there's another path for you.
How do you know now when something, because you talk about in the book about the character, like they could feel something that didn't fit inside them. They gave an example of a surgeon, and it wasn't her life. And how do you know now when something resonates with you? And how do you share
When
that with other people?
Yeah, I know when something resonates with me when the energy is there. And
Mm.
this reminds me of my favorite quote by Dr. James Hollis. He said, when the path is right, the energy is there. And it doesn't mean that the path's easy and not and without obstacles, but it means the energy's there, like something lights you up inside where your creativity comes alive, at least for me, right? My creativity comes alive. I have to almost, tamp down all the different ideas. I'm excited about it. Even the hard parts of it, I lean into it. And so it doesn't mean it's easy, but it's got energy versus being in something where you feel like you gotta muster yourself up each day, like, oh, okay, like let me psych myself up to do this again. And I think that deadness that a lot of people have, and it's become like the normal life for them. And they think, well, maybe I just need a holiday and then I'll get refreshed. Oh, you might get rested, but there's something, at least for me, when I found something that resonates, I get super excited about it.
You talked about the energy, and how do you understand that energy? Like, what is that to you?
Well, you are definitely the expert here in this conversation about energy. I think honestly, Anna, I'm late to the energy, I don't want to say party, but I'm a product of both my parents. My father is pragmatic and science based, and my mother is more spiritual and Reiki master and crystal boards, and I'm both of them. But I think for a lot of especially men, we we tend to try to follow in the footsteps of our fathers. And I think in that, I always felt this struggle also with, I've had this spiritual pull as well. So um, energy, I guess, as I understand it for me, again, it does come back down to, it's not so much about being sighted for me, but energy for me, as I'm starting to learn more about it, is when I can feel calmness, when it's not a turbulent state inside of me. Of course, the energy can be there and it's turbulent and I'm stressed and I'm frustrated. And that's why later on in the book, I wrote about the beautiful state versus the turbulent state. And I spent a lot of years in the turbulent state, just letting the outside dictate the inside, right? And it took me a long time to realize that, wait a minute, I get to control the weather, at least the weather inside of me.
And how do you impact the weather inside of you, and how do you understand that?
So for me, the journey was about becoming more aware, first of all, about what's going on. It's a little bit like, how do you tell a fish that they're wet, right? We're just so in these states where, I'm living in a state of stress, or I'm always broke, or I'm always, whatever it might be, and it just becomes the norm after a while. And it's sort of like every once in a while you have these moments of happiness and joy, but then you're back to this signature state of wrestling and worry and struggle and anxiety. At least that's what it was for me. But when something's when something's all the time, it you don't notice it anymore. It's just is. So as I began to get more, I guess, aware of my state, part of that was through journaling. Part of that was through trying to explain what is it that I'm feeling right now. And I think this is tough for a lot of people. I think it's especially tough for men to join a, a feeling inside with a word. It's almost like
Mm.
going to a foreign country that you don't speak and you got to order food at a restaurant. You just don't have a word for that.
Mm.
So other than the simple ones, anger, like I'm just angry, I'm frustrated. I've spent a lot of time like that. So it's getting more intentional, getting more aware of what's going on for me, and then going a step deeper and going, okay, what's happening? What is this in service to? So that's my journey. I feel like I'm like the guy that's taken a long time, longer than he should have, to get to the point where I now start to think more about the inner life. Which sounds strange coming from a guy who spent years in ministry, but that's just how I feel.
But that's, I mean, but I think it's from my perspective, it's beautiful. So thank you. I think that you're actually probably ahead of the curve in leading the divine, what I would say the divine masculine, to recognize that they have this inner world, and it's quite beautiful.
I think,
What's your intention with it? What do you want to do with this?
are you speaking about the work with the book? And
Yeah.
honestly, what I want to do is I want to help people get unstuck from just the mostly fears that stop them from really stepping into the life I think they're called to live. Because I do have a spiritual, upbringing, not from a religious perspective, but then I did spend so many years in a religious environment. I have a belief that we have a creator, and I also have a belief that all of us have a signature. That's why everyone's fingerprints are different. Even identical twins have different fingerprints, and yet we use those as identifiers, right, for security. And that's for a reason, because everyone has a song that only they can sing. And if they don't sing it, the world doesn't get to hear it. And it's your gift to be able to sing it. And for so many years, I mean, you could argue this, for so many years, I feel like my fears stopped me from really just stepping out and being authentic. It doesn't mean I wasn't doing things that took courage, like being on stage and speaking at conferences and, all of these things, but that's one kind of courage. There's another kind of courage that's I'm going to bring the authentic version of me to the world. That's the terrifying thing, because getting on stage in front of 1,000 people, okay, for a kid who grew up on a small cattle ranch, the only redheaded kid in his town, which made me a minority. When you grow up like that, I grew up with all these insecurities. So even to just get on stage and speak, I've done that thousands of times now. Yeah, that took courage, but nothing like bringing you to the world. I think that's the ultimate flex, if if that's the right way to put that.
Mm, that's gorgeous. How do you know when you're bringing the authentic you to the world?
I wish I had a really great quote-worthy answer on this one, Anna. I feel like in so many ways I'm still figuring that out, because when I will I will think, okay, I've just brought my authentic self, to the world in whatever that means. It could be a post, a video, or something. And then maybe a month later, I'm realizing, like, oh, wait a minute. Like, I don't think that was totally you, right? Like, I think there's another layer deeper. So maybe that's what it is. Maybe it's an uncovering of layer after layer,
Mm,
to bring the real you to the world. So
wow, I'm so curious. What's your experiences of the real you? Like, how do you experience it?
I think for me, my place to experience me is in nature, in the
Mm.
mountains. I grew up near the mountains, so there's something about them. They inspire me because they, in one way, make me feel small, that the world is big and exciting, and there's all these adventures ahead of me. On the other side of it, they make me feel safe. There's something about the mountains, and it's just like they're not moving. They're not going anywhere. And there's something about that. So I think in that environment, if I'm out there alone or if I'm taking friends out there, I think that's the closest thing for me to just letting all my guards down and just bringing me to the moment.
And when you do, what's your experience like? What's it like inside?
You know, I'm a lot more playful. I'm a lot more freed up. I'm a lot more
See,
goofy, right? The things where you feel like, well, I can't be like that at work. Can't be this in a professional environment, but out there, that's what that's these are great questions, Ann. I haven't thought about these things before, so you're really stretching my thinking here.
oh, well, that's good. I just want to know. So you're a stick in the mud outside of, just kidding. Not
Well,
really.
I don't know. I've been called similar things, but I try to be playful, but it's not like you know how there's a well, maybe you don't know how there's a difference. Maybe you're just always authentic, but there's a difference between that moment when you just really have let your hair down, and maybe around your closest friends or even family members. Sometimes even around my kids, I'm still like, okay, I got to be the father here. I got to be this um, some kind of role model. But this is part of the beauty of life, though, don't you think, Anna? It's just like the journey. It's just figuring things out. And I love that we can all do this. There's not really a destination, and I'm so used to that, right? Like, let's get to the summit, let's get to the top, let's check off the box, and work on bringing ourselves to the world. I think is just probably an ongoing journey.
It's the difference between your two books and who you're becoming is so different. Do you ever compare that?
Yeah, the first book was it's for those listening is a leadership book. It's done really well. It was more like I'm a speaker. I need a book that's going to help my business, and I just took the book out of what I was already teaching. It's very prescriptive. It's a leadership framework. It's one of the reasons it's gone done so well. But this book came out of actually sort of my own dark night of the soul, probably late 30s. That moment where it's like my life, my body, my soul finally just revolted, and I went through this health crisis, and they did all these tests. Like, I was so exhausted, I couldn't move. They thought, oh, maybe he has lupus, maybe he has. I'm going through all this battery of tests, and then at the end, and I was really scared. Like, I couldn't even get out of bed. I was really scared, and I thought, like, I've ruined my body somehow. I've done something because I just put so much stress and pressure on me. And then they get all the tests back and they're like, there's nothing wrong with you. And then I was like, they're like, you might be depressed. I was like, don't say that. And that was the first time I actually went and saw a therapist, which was a terrifying experience to just even cross that hill. But that therapist had recommended a book to me called Finding Meaning in the Second Half of Life by Dr. James Hollis. James Hollis, I'm not sure if you're familiar with his work. It's so deep. He's a Jungian psychoanalyst. He's written 20 or 25 books. He's amazing. But in that book, he talked about how at some point the self that we know, that the self, the fish in the water, right? The self that we've always been will collide with the other self, and that's the soul. That's that energy that begins to assert itself, and there's a collision that happens there. And he said, then you will be invited into a conversation with your soul, but many avoid the appointment. So that metaphor stuck with me for years. And that actually became the seed of this book because I thought, wouldn't it be cool if there was a story about someone who was avoiding the appointment with their soul, but they ended up stumbling into this village in the middle of Bolivia only to find out they've actually been summoned there to climb this mountain where you can't escape and you have to sit down and listen to your soul speak to you. And so that's where the book came out of. But the interesting thing was, like, Anna, I had this idea a long time ago, and in 2015, I pitched the idea to McGraw-Hill, who had done my first book. They said no. I pitched it to Wiley. They said no, who now published it. But I'm so glad they all said no because back then it was a very prescriptive book. It was like, the 5 points, here's the 7 shifts, like it was like that. A decade later, Wiley reaches out to me and they're like, "Hey, do you have something?" And I said, "Well, I got this one thing, but not, I'm just sitting on it." And they're like, "Send it." So I did, and they're like, "We want to do this." So it's just interesting. Even for those of you who write or get told no, like, yeah, maybe it's just not the right time. I'm so glad they said no 10 years ago.
I'm so curious because I am in deep contemplation about listening to my soul. How do you listen to your soul?
I have to make space for it. I have to make time where I'm not thinking, I'm not stuck in that logic side of my brain. And again, for me, especially when it's a tough, so I went up to Canada because my son was playing hockey up there, and I took a day by myself. I went into the mountains and I was there by myself, and that's when I said, okay. It was like I was talking to myself. I said, okay, what do you really want? And don't judge the answer. And as soon as I did that, it was clear. And it was a terrifying answer. And I think at least for me, the thing that stops me from listening to my soul is fear and logic. And when I can get away and just be like, what do you really want? And again, it's okay. Like whatever you're going to say is okay. I give it space to speak, permission to speak, and safety to speak. Uh, that's that's what's worked for me.
That's so beautiful. Do you have a daily practice with your soul, or is it like a date weekend or
I don't have anything like that from a structure perspective. That's a good idea, though. So let me reflect on that. Again, I think for me, Anna, like I said, I'm still both my parents. I run a business, so there's still that side of me that kicks in. But there is a yearning to get out and be on my own. And for me, that's true as well. Like I know I'm an introvert, but when I can just get out to the mountains. So I try to go to the mountains every weekend and just be there, even for 2 hours, if I can just do that. If I didn't live near mountains, I would get out into some kind of park or something and then stop thinking.
and how do you stop thinking? Because that, I mean, I don't know if you're, how do you encourage people to stop thinking when it seems that my experience is people don't even know that they're thinking and they don't know how to stop it once
For
they're aware
sure.
of it.
Yeah, I'm totally on board with that. So I think it's like any kind of muscle. Any of you who have tried to meditate and it was a frustrating experience, but if you stuck with it, eventually you get there, right? You get to this place where to settle down instead of 40 minutes takes 20 minutes, then takes 10 minutes, and eventually you get to this place where you're like, "Oh wow, this is amazing." So I go times where I'm really I'm good at it, right? Where I go and I can just be calm quickly, and there's other times I get away from it because life gets busy and I think, "Oh, wait a minute, I'm out of touch with really what's going on." So I think it's it's practice and repetition and non-judgment. You go out to a park and just be like, you know what, I'm just not going to think. And a minute later you're thinking, and then like, hey, that's okay. Uh, it can help to reach out and touch something, even the bark of a tree, feeling a leaf, just examining it, looking at like, isn't this amazing? So even though you might think that's thinking, it's not the traditional thinking that you're trying to solve some problem and figure something out, which is mostly what our brains are always doing. But just marvel at nature, marvel at creation, marvel at how it's all
Mm.
connected. The energy in that leaf is going to leave that leaf and go someplace else, as will you, right? We're this energy that's around, and getting in touch with a view of the world like that really puts Monday's report that's due in perspective.
I don't think I've heard somebody say the word Marvel other than in comic books. And it's such a beautiful word. And the feeling of it, the energy. Talk about words come from the energy. I could feel that so alive in you. It's breathtaking.
Yeah, I think to marvel is with some of the research about like awe, like that, the emotion of awe, to be in a place where you just like, wow, this is captivating. Now, but here's the thing: some people think, well, I don't live near a mountain, or I don't have the Grand Canyon in front of me. Yeah, those are the obvious things that make everyone stand in awe, but you can find you can find awe in your backyard, and you can marvel. I mean, you can sit there in a chair and look out over your grass, and instead of thinking like, oh, I can't believe that it's dying in this corner, you can also marvel at there's another world down there. Like there's an entire
Mm.
world that none of us even like pay attention to, and yet there's battles and deaths and births and cultures and insects and creatures. It's amazing. And then we could go, let's say you're stuck at your desk and say, okay, well, I don't have a yard. I'm in a condo. And well, okay, then you can look at anything in your house and realize that it's just made up of atoms and infinite space and plasma, and all of a sudden you're overwhelmed, like you're in awe. And to me, that puts my problems in perspective. Just realize, wow, like it's amazing that we have life. It's amazing that even in the struggles, I would love to tell you like, oh, my life is just struggle free. No, it's lots of struggles.
If it is, I'm buying what you got.
For sure. We could do it. We could do 30 minutes of me just telling you everything that's not where I want it to be.
um, there's something I'm so curious is when I hear you speak, the way that I experience you is just so much love. And is Marvel your love? Is that your how you love? Is it being a Marvel?
I'm gonna have to think of that, Anna. No one's asked me that before, but that is definitely a driver for me. The experiences of the experiences of a big world, that something that I'm just in awe of because I can't wrap my mind around it. I love that. One thing I don't like is when I feel like the world is getting everything figured out. And this goes back to when I was in middle school. I wanted to be an archaeologist because I saw an Indiana Jones movie, and I was like, that looks cool, traveling around and ancient temples and buried treasure. So for the next 5 years, I wanted to be an archaeologist. Like it was my dream. And then my parents wanted to support that, and they found an archaeological dig near our city, and they signed me up as a volunteer kid. So I'm like this, I don't know, I was in the 10th grade. So that puts me at 15. So I go to this dig, and it was for like a native Indian stone tools site or something. And they give me a trowel, and they give me my meter by meter square of dirt, and they're instructing me how to scrape the dirt. And if I find anything, I gotta tell the guy. And so I'm doing it, and I would find this thing, and I'd find a rock, like a pebble, and I'd like call them over and like, what's this? And they're like, that's a modified pebble. And I would say, well, what's a modified pebble? And they're like, it's probably just a pebble, but you got to tag it and measure it, and it will inspect it in the lab. And I'm like, okay. So after like a day of this, I'm like, this is horrible. Who wants to be an archaeologist? Like, where's the, and it was like that, there was no ancient temple there for me to find. And that actually ended my dream of being an archaeologist, because I thought, well, this is tedious. And that I think more speaks to the fact that I want a certain amount of adventure in my life. And yeah, maybe I've not very linked it before to Marvel, Anna, so this is really helpful for me to do that. Maybe that's why I like to marvel at things. And yeah,
Do you marvel at people?
I do marvel at people in so many ways. I've I've realized now why parents annoy their children, because we look at our kids and we see so much in them. We see so much potential, so much strength, and then we think, you could just use it to do X, Y, and Z, and then we press on them.
Ah,
I've pressed on them as my father pressed on me, and then they resist, right? They push back on that. but it's because I see so much in them. And I think with people, I have my days where it's discouraging, and I think the world is got a lot of big ugly spots right now. But all the ugliness, this is the amazing thing about people. Anyone that, let's say, is even causing harm, intentionally causing harm to people, inside of them is the capacity to create something beautiful, to love someone, to make someone, better. And so the range of our potential is massive. We can be really bad. We can do a lot of bad things. We can do really amazing things, and all of that's going to be your choice. So I think in that way, I think also to me, like I meet somebody like you, and you're so in tune, you're so in touch with energy and the surroundings. And so I look at that and I think, oh, I want to be more like that. I wish I was more like had some of those gifts, right? Now, whether that's something I can learn or whether that's just not been given to me, but it's fun for me to think, but I can learn more, I can try more. And I marvel at that as well. Like, look at
Oh
there's
God,
not enough time
I got to
to
tell you,
learn it
your
here.
marveling is like crack. It is so it's so I could distinctly feel the difference when you were in true marvel of life and that energy. It was so palpable. And then when the intellect tries to marvel and it's different, but that the purity of that energy isn't like anything I've ever felt before. It's like God smacked by life, just life itself.
Well, thank you.
Beautiful. Well, we are coming to the end of our time, which I have loved. Thank you. James, where do people find about you? What's the one thing you want people to know in closing?
People can find about me, at least about my book, at a website called iwillclimb.com. Iwillclimb.com. And this is what I would like people to know. I did spend a lot of years in ministry, which meant I had to do a bunch of funerals, it's just another whole world. But at least in the Western world, there's sort of a formula of how we do funerals. And this goes for most of us if you live in the West. At some point, there's going to be a gathering of people for you. Typically, someone gets up and reads the eulogy, and that is a list of the things you did in life, the accomplishments, and it takes about 2 minutes. And then the rest of the hour is spent with people who loved you, sharing about what you meant to them and the impact you had on their life. And if that's our final curtain call in this world, then shouldn't that tell us something about what's most important? And it's the impact that you can have on people. And of course, I think one of the best ways we can have impact on people is just continuing to show up and grow and stretch ourselves and use our gifts and refine them to sing that song that we were meant to sing.
I don't know. I'm going to say also show up and marvel at each other.
Exactly, for sure. Well, Anna, I have marveled at you in my short time getting to know you. Your heart and your energy, I feel that, and I never say that actually when I'm in an interview, but what a privilege for me to be here. Thank you.
It's been an honor. So much love. Thank you. And all this will be James' information. His link to his book will be on my podcast. And thank you for listening, everybody. Lots of love.